Welcome to the Centre for Christian Spirituality, and thank you so much for joining us on this 12th Sunday in Ordinary Time. We look forward to seeing you this week and into the weeks followed, because we're now back together, socially distanced, and we're really enjoying this opportunity. So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light. And what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground unperceived by your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I will deny before my Father in heaven.
This text occurs in one of the discourses that Matthew made out of the document Q that he took so much of his material from. And it's known as the Apostolic Discourse, or the Mission Discourse. And it begins with the election of the 12, and then the sending out of the 12. And it moves to talk about the persecution, how they're going to be persecuted. And I think we need to remember that Matthew wrote towards all around the year 80. And at that time, the conflict was really between the Jews who were struggling for a new identity after the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, and the Christians who themselves were struggling to form their identity so soon after the coming of Jesus. And that caused a lot of conflict. The Jewish movement was led by the Pharisees, and of course the Pharisees are particularly the ones that Matthew tends to attack. So it's a question of persecution. And it's in that context that we actually have here, so have no fear of them, right? So that while there is persecution, they are not to have fear. And there are 4 reasons, 4 consolation moments in this particular gospel. The first one is there, in that in the end, everything's going to be uncovered. In other words, in the end, it'll be all clear what's happening. So there's an eschatological dimension here. It's a contrast between what's happening now and perhaps not being able to see it clearly. But in the end, it's all going to be worked out. And of course, it will be worked out in favour of the people. The second source of consolation there is the fact that I just can't find the text here. Yes, that they are not to fear these people because all they can do is kill the body, right? They can't do away with the soul. And the one who they can give away with the soul is the very one that they're preaching. And part of the gospel is about having the courage to preach out. The third thing there that gives them consolation is just how precious they are in the eyes of God. Right? That every hair of their head the Lord knows and will protect. And the fourth part of the consolation is the fact that Jesus is there and will be there in heaven for those who acknowledge him. He will acknowledge them before their Heavenly Father. So I think the early church lived in a very difficult time. We use the word persecution, but certainly it was the suffering of shaping their own life in a context which was not user-friendly to what they were doing. And what they had to do was to do that with a vision that in the end God will bring them through. And I think that's the message of the cross. It's not what they did to Jesus, it's what Jesus did. That he went on in the face of this terrible suffering with trust in the Father. And I think this gospel is calling on the apostles to do what has to be done, to do it publicly and openly, but be ready to pass through the persecution and to actually have trust in the Lord.
And I think it is a rally for me to have that courage. And I do like the acknowledgement, do not be afraid. Every time I hear that in the scriptures, I'm reassured, because so often there is the darkness, you can't see the full picture. Like, you live your life through and you think, how can this possibly be resolved? How can this dispute or uncertainty? So to me, this is a gospel of, I think they refer to the housetops or the rooftops. So get on the roof. Get on the roof and preach. Don't be afraid. We're not in, the year 80, but in 2020, sometimes it can be tough call as well. So it's that rally, don't be afraid, get on the rooftops, do your best. And I do like that image. I know I'm going to smile because I'm thinking about, every hair on your head. And I can feel you're going to say something.
Stephanie, I thought of John at that time too.
Thank you.
No, but it's just how precious that God will go to any length. So, yes, this is my, do it anyway.
Well, that's encouraging. Thank you. I struggle with this. In spite of the examples that Jesus offers, I mean, we're almost every day there's something that confronts us and makes us question and wonder, and we see atrocities every day. We read it in the paper, we see it on the news, we hear it on the radio, and yet the gospel is saying, do not be afraid. And I struggle with this. I mean, I think sometimes, Jesus, you've got to be kidding. Don't be afraid. Look at all of these things. And I think, looking out where I live, and I see the pigeons there that annoy me, but, they're kind of cared for and loved. And yet I can't, I acknowledge that, but I can't sort of bring it home to myself and find when I am sort of hit with something that I find distasteful or uncomfortable or hurting, to do not be afraid. And so the gospel becomes a real challenge for me to think about this truth today.
Well, we invite you now to consider your reflection on hearing the scripture the first time. We're going to take the opportunity now to listen to the scripture read a second time.
So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground unperceived by your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven.
I think for me, the opportunity on hearing the scripture read a second time was that, I don't know why, that line from the scripture, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Just will Jesus know me? Will he be able to say, yes, I knew this one, in that final moment? So it's an encouragement to keep on, to keep proclaiming, and to do the best I can by spreading the good news.
Yes, I took up the word you mentioned, Virginia, do not be afraid. And obviously there it's afraid of persecution. But one of the things that I've found in all the reading I've done throughout the centuries of classics and things is that one of the worst and the hardest things to overcome is that we want to be noticed or liked by others. And I think that that's a sort of a fear in a way. You can be fearing of doing something less that affect your reputation, or others may not relate to you as they did before. And I took that as a fear, so I thought that I might reflect on that in my own life and just see, is that fear there, and recognise it as something that really isn't a good fear.
I know at times, often I feel that I'm down and out, but yet I get up and on again I go. Perhaps what I need to do to think about is really, what is it, why is it that I can get up and continue on in spite of what I think has been something distasteful in my life. So what is it, or better, who is it that somewhere in the midst of all of this is there with a power, with an invitation to live that inspires me that this is not the end, but rather get up and go again. So a very positive experience to come out of it.
So we invite you now to consider what is it the Scripture is calling you to do or to live out in your own life on hearing that a second time. Just take a moment. Well, we're all aware that our best intentions can stay purely best intentions, but we need to have that constant encouragement and prayer and conversation with God to help us put those things into our lives and to live them out. So we'll take a moment now to pray for that perseverance and courage to do what we intend to do. Well, we're going to conclude our Lectio reflection in a moment, and we will be listening to the collect from the opening prayer of the Mass of the 12th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Just a reminder, we look forward to seeing you again next week, and I think John reminded us last week, tell a friend, invite a friend, show the link to a friend, because I'm not afraid and I'm spreading the good news from the housetops. Thank you, John. If we might conclude with the final prayer.
Grant, O Lord, that we may always revere and love your holy name, for you never deprive of your guidance those you set firm on the foundation of your love, through Christ our Lord.